Hey Heather, welcome to the Sattvico's FoodYoga Nutrition Talks. We really are glad to have you here with us on this show. So would love to know a little about yourself, your background, where do you come from? And, of course, there's this next question, which is about yoga, but we'll stick this one to more about yourself.
Okay. So I grew up outside of Toronto in a town called Georgetown, and that's where I found yoga. So I'll wait on that question for the next part. Through lots and lots of different parts of working in publishing and then starting to be interested in different healing practices, I've used and changed and shifted my life so many times. And I now live in Brooklyn, New York, where I do teach yoga and offer Reiki, and I write books with different healing arts in mind. So in a very short nutshell, that's the high-level journey of my life.
Of course. And before I move to the yoga question, I think something you really touched. I was reading your profile and I was reading more about you. You seem to be an expert in yoga nidra. That's a very interesting topic and it's very close to my heart. So I would love to start with that question. So can you explain to us about yoga nidra and your journey with yoga nidra? How did you end up being a teacher of yoga nidra?
I've always been interested in dreams and psychology and energy. And Yoga Nidra really became my way into understanding those aspects of self even more, because for people who aren't quite sure what it might be, Yoga Nidra is this practice where, at least in the way I've been taught, it's usually done lying down, so in Shavasana, often at the end of a yoga class, but it doesn't have to be. And there's a series of different steps or tools or ways that you're guided through a meditation and a visualization to allow the body and the energy to start to lie down. And this helps get into a different brain wave. So like the theta brain wave, the sleeping kind of when you're in that REM sleep, but you can do it while you're also being awake at the same time. So being awake and asleep simultaneously. And I just love that because it's a way to consciously see aspects of yourself, psychology, things you might not be aware of, even if it's something like an intention for the next step of your life. And consciously you might think, oh, I want to do this or that or this. And Yoga Nidra allows you to get below that doing, active, trying to process this in the brain into a deeper place where what arises can be surprising and is usually more accurate and true.
Of course. I've experienced that, Heather, and I think you touched upon a topic which I talk to people about, but the way you explained it, beautiful. In fact, I don't know if you know about it, the CEO of Google, Sundar Pichai, he advocates Yoga Nidra like nobody else. He's a great advocate of Yoga Nidra.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
And I think it's beneficial from a practical standpoint as well, because it can help replace sleep and all these other things that I'm sure you're aware of. But my teacher is named Mona Anand. And so she teaches through Ishta Yoga in New York, but she grew up in India and America. So in between both worlds. And for her, this was a way of bringing practices and teachings to people for fun to start. And now she teaches it. And she's been my guide for these many years.
I'll take 10 seconds to tell you another story. So
I love your stories.
There's an epic in India, it's called Mahabharat, which is all about Krishna and his life. There's another epic called Ramayana, which is about Lord Ram and the younger brother of Lord Ram called Lakshman. So when they were sent into exile to the forest for 14 years, younger brother accompanied the elder brother into the exile. And the wife of the younger brother, she was in Yoga Nidra for 14 years, so that when her husband came back, she was still the same age. She didn't age. So she was actually in Yoga Nidra for 14 years. So this was practiced like thousands of years back. And as you rightly said, it's a state between when you sleep or when you're awake. And that's called super conscious state, I would say. And you get the best thoughts, solutions to everything. And great. I'm so glad I could chat with you on that subject. And one very generic question that I would like to ask, like we ask to most of our guest speakers, what got you into yoga? Because I mean, I can see your face. It's so bright. You are so smiling. So how did yoga happen to you?
Oh, I like how you phrase that question. Yoga did happen to me.
It happens.
Right, it happens. It's like it chooses us in some way. Yoga came to me when I was actually very, very sick. My body was very sick. My digestive system was not working anymore. And this is through years and years of looking back, like years and years of patterns of holding in the body energy and things that I didn't express or digest properly emotionally got stuck. And I was seeing all of these, super fancy doctors, and they all were telling me I was making it up. And I was like, no, I'm pretty sure I know what's happening. And I ended up seeing a naturopathic doctor, and she prescribed yoga to me. She cut out some food. She cut out gluten, dairy, and sugar. And then she also prescribed yoga. And honestly, at that point in my life, I was so ill. I was looking for something, anything to help. And there was one yoga teacher in the entire area at that time. There's many, many, many now, but this was 2005. So not that long ago. And in the terms of how yoga has shifted and changed, that's a long time ago. That's many, many centuries ago, really. And so I started going to a class once a week with this woman. And that was the beginning of my yoga journey. And it's just continued to shift and change and grow since then, with me resisting every step of the way and then accepting.
So I think the interesting part that you just brought up was that why does somebody resist, into something that can actually transform, So I got into yoga. I had some major issues with my mental health, and that was basically also kind of started reflecting into my physical health. So what do you think, if somebody gets into yoga, how much time do you think they should first spend before they start to see the benefit? They start to see it's a progressive journey. I think you have been in this journey for about 17 years now, which is amazing. You don't look like 17 years into yoga. So what do you suggest that, if somebody is a new practitioner, how do they start their journey, and what do they basically foresee when they start their journey?
It's easier said than done, but just start. And it can be so intimidating, especially in cities or like New York, for people to go to a yoga studio, because they have all of these resistances and thoughts that they don't belong there, or everyone else knows what they're doing, or I can't do it yet. But you're not supposed to be able to do it yet. And so to be open as much as you can to knowing it is a process, it is a journey, and that first toe on the mat is all you have to do. And if it's only a toe on the mat once a week at first, and then maybe that toe goes to be a whole foot on the mat, and maybe you don't even have a mat. But the idea of it is to repeat, show up for yourself and see where it takes you without having to know the answers yet. So to share from my own experience, in case that inspires other people who aren't sure, just try, toe on the mat.
Oh, okay. And what brings Heather to the yoga mat every day now?
Part of it is commitment.
Okay.
So a commitment to myself. So I made that commitment 10 years ago, and I've honored it. And that has been important for me. But it's also a way to rebalance myself every day. And the practice is different every day, because my energy and body are different every day. So it's learning more and more about what I need, what to do, what not to maybe go towards, if I need more rest, more activity. I have been trained a little bit in the doshas, so I do have that in mind when I'm meaning the different energetic states or elements of being. So yeah, I've got it as a tool or a mechanism to help me find a way to get back to myself.
Okay.
Every day.
That's a very good idea. Going back to yourself, I think that's what people don't do these days. People don't get time for themselves. And I think, as you rightly said, you need to start giving time to yourself. And once you start loving it, we kind of get that feeling of a very supreme happiness that we haven't experienced, because that happiness is from inside. So I completely agree with what you just said.
Absolutely. And it's so, even after all of this time, I'm still always like in awe that it's still there.
I'm so far behind you, but I get the same feeling. I start my day in the morning when I start my yoga. You have to get on the mat. That's the first thing that you need to tell your mind. And then after that, the next 3 hours, 2 hours, whenever you're in the practice, it just goes off, and then you feel you are into awe. Oh, wow, what a time it was. So I second your thoughts on that, Ether. Thanks for sharing that.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing.
So my one question, Heather, so I think we have passed about half of our time, and I'll take another 8 to 10 minutes from you. But I think the focus of this entire talk was nutrition. And what we have done, Heather, we have realized that when we talk to people about yoga, most of the time we don't really talk about nutrition. While I've realized that if you read into yoga, if you get deeper into yoga, nutrition becomes so much more important. You talked about doshas, we talk about the 3 gunas and all that stuff. So can you just kind of summarize a little about the right nutrition for a yoga enthusiast? I mean, some summary about that. I can ask you specific questions after that, but maybe a little summary on that.
Oh, it's so interesting because knowing this conversation was happening prompted me to think more about this, because I haven't done all that much connection of food nutrition and the physical body nutrition. So I'm very curious to hear more, because so much of my focus has been nutrition on the energetic level. Do you want me to talk a bit about that, or would you rather?
Yeah, of course. I mean, this is your stage. Please go ahead.
I'm so curious, because I want to hear from you too. I think because my physical body is something that I honestly didn't understand I had until I started practicing yoga. So that whole concept of mind-body connection was something that yoga really brought me to. And it seems strange to people who understand that they are in their physical body. But my energy was so far up and out, which is why I believe my physical body became so weak and those digestive problems started to happen. So as yoga helped me integrate my spirit and my energy back into the body, I'm like, oh, right, this beautiful tool that gives us so much information and we can work with in all these different ways. And the nutrition part for me hasn't come into that equation on a food level, but on an energetic level, I've become very conscious of what I digest.
Wow.
Meaning I haven't watched the news for years.
It's not
and right. And I still know what I need to know. It comes up, I still get it out of the ether. It still appears.
Yeah, of course. I think that's a very new perspective. In fact, I'll just introduce 20 seconds, another story. So the Lord Shiva, you would know about him, Lord Shiva, the Mahayogi. So there was something where, they kind of had something called Samudra Manthan. In Samudra Manthan, there were two, they were bad people, they were good people. Like in our epics, we call them, the bad people were Asurs and the good people were Devtas. So they were churning the sea, the ocean, because they wanted things to come out of the ocean. I mean, it's believed that everything lies inside the heart of the ocean. So in that churning process, they wanted to get the Amrit or nectar, which can actually, I would say, the nectar of infinite life, I would say. So basically all of them were the good people, the bad people, they were chasing this nectar of life while something came up. And this was the poison, the most dangerous poison that anybody could find. Now, if somebody doesn't accept that poison, the churning will not continue. So somebody will have to take that poison, and only after that, the churning will continue. So which means the world is full of good nectars, the poisons, and everything will come out. And the churning happens, the good thoughts, the bad thoughts, like what happens inside us. So then Lord Shiva had to come, and because he was a Mahayogi, he just drank the entire poison, and it stayed here. It didn't get inside him. And that's why he's called the Neelkant or the blue throat yogi, basically, because it was here, the throat turned blue, it didn't get inside him. And that's why, it's believed that people who practice yoga, they're able to, digest whatever they need to digest. Rest everything, they can keep it here. That's what yoga teaches us. And it's such a great perspective you just brought. I think that's what you were trying to probably say. Am I right?
Oh, yeah. I like that story and hearing that connection, and that it's in the throat. And oh, that's so cool. I've heard similar things about the heart, but from different traditions. So like if the heart can take in everything and move everything through, then there's only love. There's only this ability to move absolutely everything in the churning. I like the churning.
Yeah, that's why if you remember in the 7 chakra system, this is the Vishuddhi chakra, and the color is blue. So the reason for the color blue meaning that, in a yogi, when this chakra awakens, it can actually digest everything here. It will not let it go inside your body and basically kill you or whatever.
Oh, I love learning that. Yes, thank you.
No, I mean, thanks for bringing that perspective. But more specifically, I think the food, which is what all we know, So what do you think about food? I mean, what is the kind of food you recommend to your students? What is the kind of food, the nutrition post yoga that you would ideally want people to follow? Any principles, anything on that part?
I don't really prescribe things to students. What I do say is drink lots of water and make sure you stay hydrated. And I'm not sure I'm going to say this properly, but the one food that I feel like is very balancing that would be helpful is khichdi.
Wow.
Yeah?
Yeah. Have you been to India?
I have, yes, only once.
So did you
on
have
a yoga nidra retreat with Mona.
Oh, did you have khichdi?
We did.
Oh, nice. It's a wonderful.
And there's a lot of the retreats in the US that I've been on that's like what you have. And I love it, and I've made it for myself as well, although I'm not as good at it as.
So you should try. We will send you some of our Sattviko's products. So at Sattviko, we felt that there was a problem for nutrition. People were not able to get these khichdi's and the right kind of yoga food. So we created different sorts of khichdi's. So we call them post yoga meals or food yoga meals, and they are made of buckwheat, which is a millet. They are made of other millets, the tapioca, the makhana. So what we use is different stuff instead of rice, but there's the same khichdi that you would enjoy, probably closer to that at any retreat. So
okay.
We have to send you that product and get your feedback on that. How did you find it?
Oh, I'd love that. It's honestly my most favorite. And I don't know this, but I've heard that it's very balancing for all of the energies, all of the systems, and my guess would be, but hopefully you can help me, that it's easily digestible. So your body doesn't have to work that hard. And I would say that after a yoga practice or even before, like assimilation is so helpful to just help all of the energy, all of the food, everything move through. So if the system and digestion isn't working hard, which is why I can't have gluten or dairy or sugar, because those are too hard for my system to digest, then everything becomes easier to assimilate.
I feel so close to your answers, Heather. I mean, I think your perspective to everything is so much resonating with what I also personally believe in my yoga journey. So really happy to connect on this in this conversation with you, Heather.
I feel it too. I can feel it even though this is the first time we've met, but I feel very connected.
Connection of a yogi, basically.
Yeah.
I'm also deeply into the bhakti yoga. So as I practice my hatha yoga, I am very close to Lord Krishna and bhakti yoga. So I read a lot of these stories, and they tell me the reason behind a lot of whys that I'm not able to answer. So why do you progress? How do you progress? As you rightly said, we progress every day, and we are able to see those changes. So yes, so much resonating with what you just said, Heather.
Oh, thank you.
As we go deeper into yoga, our nutrition needs have to really be very specific about what our body and mind need. And khichdi, what you rightly said, is a very yogic food, I would say. So I think let's talk about more types of khichdi's in the future when we catch up.
Yeah, and I'd love to learn from you and learn more.
Of course, I would love to know.
It's something I don't know too much about. So yeah, bring it on.
Of course. I would love to do Yoga Nidra sometime with you. So would love to do that kind of session.
Oh, I'd love that. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Heather.
Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna. See you. Bye.
Bye.